Okay, the next concept is about change in demand and change in quantity demanded. This is the other concept under the theory of demand, where change in demand, change in demand, and change in quantity demanded. Well, these two concepts, change in demand and change in quantity demanded, they have other names. The other name is movement. Change in demand would be a shift in the demand curve. Shift in the demand. So do not be surprised when you find that there is shift in the demand curve and there is movement along the same demand curve. These two concepts, they also mean change in demand and change in quantity demanded. So change in demand, what do we mean? Change in demand. The other word for change in demand is the shift in demand, and the other name for change in quantity demanded is the movement along the same demand curve. Movement along the same demand curve. The same demand curve. Okay. These concepts are determined by the factors that affect the demand for the commodity. So when we say change in demand, this is an increase or decrease in demand due to other factors that affect the demand for the commodity other than the price of the commodity. So change in demand is the increase or decrease in demand due to other factors that affect demand other than the price of the commodity. In other words, we can briefly state this definition of this concept that ceteris paribus, we can say that change in demand is influenced by other factors other than price. So in this case, the price of the commodity is not responsible for change in demand, but rather change in demand is influenced by other factors, the factors that you mentioned. When I was mentioning the factors that affect the demand for the commodity, of course, we can briefly state the factors by using what we call the demand function. For example, the demand function that of course I explained the factors that affect the demand for the commodity, but in this case we can use briefly that the demand function, where we have the quantity demanded is equal to a function of different factors. For example, the price for the commodity, Px, we can use the price of the related commodity. We can have the taste and preference, Tp. We can have advertisement. We can have ignorance of the consumer, and so forth. And we can have other factors represented by Eratem. So this is just the function of many factors. Now, in this case, we are saying that the price of the commodity is not responsible for the change in demand, but these other factors are the ones which are responsible for the change in demand. So it is an increase or decrease in demand due to other factors that affect the demand for the commodity other than the price of the commodity. That is how we define change in demand. And the graph is simple. We have a simple illustration which shows how the demand is shifting from the original demand to the other demand due to other factors. For example, let us use a simple example that we have. We are going to have a simple illustration of the demand curve. a very simple illustration. In this case, I'm not going to include of course we have the price on the vertical axis and we have the quantity demanded on the horizontal axis, but in this case I am not going to use the quantities and the price purchased by individuals or by consumers in the market. I will rather draw the demand curve, that is the demand curve, and I will draw another demand curve which will imply that the demand curve is shifting. Let's say, for example, this is the demand curve, the original demand curve represented by D naught, meaning that this is the original demand curve, and this is the other demand curve represented by D1. So demand curve, the original demand curve, and the other demand curve which has now increased. If there is a decrease in demand due to other factors, we expect that the demand will shift inward. It will shift to the left. In this case, it has shifted to the right. It has shifted from demand curve 1 to demand curve 2, or to the original demand curve to the new demand curve, which is D1. And this one can be influenced by the other factors that we mentioned earlier. And when I was mentioning the factors, I told you that there are many other factors, and in our examples here, I will be using those other factors. For example, let us take an example of weather and the condition, which is another factor. I did not mention this earlier. This is another factor that affects the demand for the commodity, weather and the condition. For example, when there is rainfall, take an example when there is rainfall, when it is the rainfall season, we expect that the demand for umbrellas, for example, the demand for umbrellas will increase. When it is a rainfall season, the demand for umbrellas will always increase because consumers will tend to buy more umbrellas because they want to get rid of the rainfall. So the demand curve for umbrellas in this case will shift outward. It will shift outward. But when when the rainfall season ends, we expect the demand for umbrellas to decrease. When it's the dry season, okay? When it's the dry season, we expect the demand for umbrellas to decrease, and therefore the demand curve in this case, instead of shifting outward, it will contract. It will shift inward. It will shift from D1 to D0. It will come back to the original demand curve, or it can even shift to the other side. It can contract to the other. For example, if this was D0, maybe this is D2 and this is D2 here. So it has now shifted to the left. This one is shifting to the right because of the increase in demand. This one is shifting to the left because of the decrease in demand due to the weather and the conditions. Therefore, this is another factor which can explain the demand for a good or for a service, weather and the condition. Okay, so this is the graph which represents change in demand or shift in the demand curve. The other concept under the same is the change in quantity demanded. Change in quantity demanded. Okay, so we are saying that change in quantity demanded is normally influenced by the price of the commodity ceteris paribus. Change in quantity demand is normally influenced by the price of the commodity ceteris paribus, meaning that other factors remain constant. Only the price of the commodity will determine how much a consumer will purchase in the market. So we assume that other factors are constant. Only the price of the commodity will influence the quantity to be purchased by the consumers in the marketplace. Therefore, we can define the concept that, let us try to define the concept. We can briefly define the concept of change in quantity demanded. That change in quantity demanded, by definition, is the increase or decrease in the quantity demanded as a result of a change in price. Change in price. Change in the price of the commodity. Change in the price of a good or service. It has also considered services because we have been mostly talking about goods. Of a good or service. A good or service. Ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus. This ceteris paribus condition is very important. Ceteris paribus condition is very important. That under ceteris paribus we assume that other factors remain constant. Only the price of the commodity affects the quantity demanded. Okay. So what are we saying that? We are saying that, for example, if you go to the market, in the example I used about the change in demand, we took one example of umbrellas. And we said that in the rainfall season, the demand for umbrellas is normally high. Therefore, the demand curve for umbrellas we tend to shift outward. Now, in this case, the number of umbrellas to be purchased, regardless of the season, regardless of the amount of rainfall, will depend on the price. Will depend on the price of the commodity. Other factors will remain constant. For example, it can be a rainfall season, but the price for umbrellas is very high, implying that consumers are not able to purchase those umbrellas at that market price. Therefore, the quantity demanded for umbrellas will decrease because of the increase in the price, regardless of the prevailing condition, which is rainfall season. Okay. Therefore, in this case, the number, that's why we say change in quantity, meaning that the amount of umbrellas to be purchased will depend on the price of those umbrellas, ceteris paribus. So the graph here will represent a movement. It will represent a movement along the same demand, curve, and we can draw it. We are going to draw the normal demand curve where we have the vertical and the horizontal axis. The vertical and horizontal axis. As I said, do not forget to label your graph. On the vertical axis, you have the price for the commodity, and in this case, you have the price for umbrellas. And on the horizontal axis, you have the quantity demanded for umbrellas. So we are going to take a hypothetical example that it is the rainfall season, and people are willing to buy umbrellas. So, for example, the price for umbrella, let's say, is ranging from, take an example from, 5,000 per umbrella. 5,000. Let's say it has now increased to 6,000. It has now increased, let's say, to 7. There is 1,000 increase. Okay, let's say to 8,000. Okay. Now the price here. Sorry, this is the price. The quantities. Okay. Consumers, they tend to increase price based on many factors. One of the factors will be the scarcity of the product itself. For example, if the umbrellas are very few in the market, sellers may tend to increase the price because there is scarcity of umbrellas in the market. The other factor would be the demand, of course, which is related to scarcity. But if the umbrellas are more demanded, and in this case, remember, it is the rainfall season, so there is high demand for umbrellas. So sellers will tend to also increase the price. But looking at these figures, the price is increasing. There is a 1,000 increase at each level. Okay, let's say that now we have to draw this change in quantity demand by observing the law of demand, that the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. So we expect that, let's say, let us first indicate the quantity demanded in this case. Take an example that maybe quantities are ranging from, let's say, to 10 umbrellas. Let's say this is a wholesaler. Maybe the buyer is buying in huge quantities. Maybe want to resell the product. So maybe he has bought 10. Let's say he has bought 13. Let's take an example. Maybe he has bought 15. Okay, 17. Maybe 20. This is an hypothetical example. The idea behind is to show that an increase in price will tend to lead to a decrease in quantity demanded. So don't mind about the numbers. Okay, so when the price is 5,000, the quantity demanded is 20 here. The idea is that when the price is low, this person has bought more quantities, 20 umbrellas. If the price increases to 6,000, the number of umbrellas are decreasing. Now it is 17. So 6 with 17. Okay, here. Okay. Then as the price goes to 7,000, the umbrellas are also decreasing. Let's say now it is 15. Okay. 15 is somewhere here. Okay. 15. And as the price increases to 8,000, the number of umbrellas are also decreasing. In this case, it is okay. No. This is 5, 20. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there should be another number on top here. Let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9,000. So when the price is 8, the number of umbrellas are 13. Okay, here. And when the price goes higher to 9,000, you see the number of umbrellas have now decreased to 10. Okay, so this is what the consumer can afford at different price levels of the umbrella. So you join these points. Join the points, and you can have your demand. You can have your demand curve. So when we talk of the movement along the same demand curve, we mean that this consumer has been moving from, we can use this, let's say this is point A, call this point B, call this point C, call it point D, and call this one maybe point E. We don't have a scenario where at zero price the consumer has purchased anything. Of course, we normally say that at zero price there is no quantity demanded, because suppliers are not willing to supply goods in the market when there is no price. Suppliers or businessmen will normally take their goods in the market when there is a guiding or a ruling price. So at zero price, we don't expect any quantity demanded, because there will be no supply at all. Okay, there can be supply, but we don't expect any demand. Now, when we talk of the movement along the same demand curve, we normally say that this person has been moving from point to point trying to purchase goods and services. There is a movement along the same demand curve, movement up and down. Okay, there is a decrease and increase in the quantity demanded due to the increase in the price. So this is the movement along the same demand curve. The other one was a shift in the demand curve. So this is the two concepts which are called the shift in demand curve and the movement along the same demand curve. And this marks the end of this topic under the theory of demand and supply. There are many other concepts to be discussed, but it is just a short description of the concept. We have discussed many ideas, and I think they are useful to you, but you can consult some other books, some other references to get a clear understanding of the concepts. You can get different examples to get a broad knowledge about the concepts under the theory of demand. In the next video, we are going to discuss about the theory of supply. I wish you a good time.